On the morning of February 1st, 2026, Americans woke up expecting an ordinary news cycle. It was a Sunday, and morning shows were broadcasting as usual. However, instead of the weather forecasts and political updates, major news outlets began reporting something completely different: a missing person case. The breaking news came out of Arizona. An 84-year-old woman had been reported missing from her home in the Catalina foothills near Tucson. Her name was Nancy Guthrie. Within hours, the story moved beyond local news in Tucson. By noon, national networks were covering it. By the evening, it was a leading headline across major U.S. media. The reason was not the disappearance itself, but who Nancy Guthrie is. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. Early reports confirmed that Nancy had been home the night before and was discovered missing the following morning. Authorities found blood inside her house and her security cameras disabled. The situation was suspicious. Nancy's case was no longer simply a missing person case. It is now an abduction. So, what happened to Nancy Guthrie? Is she somehow important? Was this a planned kidnapping? And what theories are investigators considering? This is the story of the alleged kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie lived in the Catalina foothills area near Tucson, Arizona. She is a grandmother and a mother to 3 children, Annie, Cameron, and Savannah, the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, and a face that millions of Americans see every morning. Despite this, Nancy herself stayed out of the spotlight and led a quiet and private life. By all accounts, her routines were steady and predictable. She would go to family dinners, church services, or spend time with her grandchildren. At 84, she has some mobility problems and relies on daily medication and a pacemaker. But everyone who knows Nancy said her mind was still sharp despite her old age. There was nothing out of the ordinary in Nancy's life that could have hinted at what happened next, and no proof if Nancy was the target from the start or if her disappearance was simply collateral damage to a robbery gone wrong. To understand how it all went down, we need to go back to the night of Nancy's disappearance. January 31st. That evening, Nancy took an Uber to her daughter Annie's home, who lived a few miles away, for dinner and a small family game night. It was a normal visit. They shared a meal, played games, and spent a few relaxed hours together. Nothing unusual stood out. It was the kind of evening no one thinks twice about: warm, relaxed, and familiar. Around 9:45 p.m., Nancy's son-in-law drove her back to her house in the Catalina foothills. He waited as she went inside and watched the garage door close before pulling away. That was the last confirmed time a family member saw her. Shortly after, Nancy likely settled into her usual nighttime routine. The house went dark and silence settled in. But sometime after 1:30 in the morning, that silence broke. A masked man creeps towards Nancy's home. He's wearing gloves and carrying what looks to be a gun on the waist of his pants. If Nancy was the target, it means that someone approached the house with intent. The masked figure wasn't random. He came prepared. Perhaps he had watched the home before. Perhaps he knew Nancy lived alone. He moves quietly toward the entrance. He walks up to the porch and goes straight for the doorbell camera. He starts fidgeting with it. At 1:47 a.m., Nancy's doorbell camera was disconnected from the network. The intruder has disabled the camera and is now moving freely. Inside, Nancy is asleep. She has no idea anyone is outside. The masked man makes his way inside, climbs the stairs, and moves towards Nancy's room. At some point, Nancy wakes up. He goes to grab her, but she is not as helpless as he thinks. Nancy refuses to go silently. She resists, and a confrontation happens. Despite her struggle, he quickly overpowers her, using enough force to leave a trail of blood behind, but not enough to end her life at the scene. She is taken from her home against her will. What makes this even more strange is that no nearby surveillance cameras captured anyone leaving the property with Nancy. No neighbor's security system shows a vehicle pulling away. It is as if, after the camera went dark, Nancy simply vanished. In the days after Nancy disappeared, ransom messages began to appear. On February 2nd, media outlets reported receiving ransom letters demanding payment for Nancy's release.
It is Monday morning. We have received a 4th letter from the same person who says that he knows where Nancy Guthrie is and he wants money in return for the information. Essentially, he wants the reward.
But first, tonight, the clearest detail yet about those so-called ransom notes, one demanding $6 million for the return of Nancy Guthrie.
The note included specific details about Nancy's home and what she had been wearing that night.
It says, "I know what I saw 5 days ago south of the border, and I was told to shut up, so I know who he is, and that was definitely Nancy with them."
The following day, other outlets reported receiving other messages demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin, with a cryptocurrency address and a deadline.
$6 million for her safe return. Those ransom notes sent to local Arizona newsrooms. Guthrie's family describing her frail health and the medication she needs to survive.
Investigators reviewed them, but they have not confirmed that any came from the real kidnapper, and none included verified proof that Nancy was alive. The fact that ransom demands surfaced pushed many people to believe this was a planned abduction. But then there's another possibility. What if Nancy was not the main target? In this version, someone goes to the house planning a burglary. They shut off the doorbell camera so they won't be recorded. Maybe they think the house is empty. Maybe they assume an older woman would not be able to stop them. Then something goes wrong. Nancy wakes up. She hears a noise. A door opens. There is movement inside her home. The intruder doesn't expect that. He panics. A struggle breaks out. Nancy fights back. Blood is left behind. In just a few seconds, the situation changes from a simple break-in to something much more serious. Now the intruder faces a choice: run and risk being identified, or take control of the situation. At that moment, he makes a desperate decision. He takes the only witness with him. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker is disconnected from her phone, which now meant that she was now out of range. At 11 a.m. the next morning, one of Nancy's church friends calls her family to inform them that she hasn't shown up to church and is not answering her phone. By noon, Nancy was officially declared missing. Both main theories, a planned abduction or a burglary that escalated, fit parts of the evidence. But neither theory explains everything. As the story spread across the country, local, state, and federal authorities launched a massive search. The Pima County Sheriff's Department sent out search and rescue teams, including dogs, drones, and helicopters, with help from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. They searched the roads and desert areas around the Catalina foothills, checked nearby security cameras, and went door to door in the neighborhood. Despite all this, they found no sign of Nancy. By February 2nd, just 2 days after the incident, the case changed from a search to a criminal investigation. Law enforcement has not confirmed that any of the ransom messages included verified proof that she was alive. That means some of the notes might not have come from the person who actually took her. Hoaxes like this are very common in high-profile cases, where people would jump on the opportunity to get ransom money from desperate families through fake ransom notes. On February 7th, Savannah Guthrie and her siblings released a video addressing whoever might be holding their mother.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers. We will not rest until we are together again.
The investigation is still ongoing. Authorities are asking the public for tips and are offering a $100,000 reward for information. The FBI released new details about the masked person seen outside Nancy's home, describing him as a man about 5 feet 10 inches tall, wearing gloves and carrying a black Ozark Trail hiker backpack. On February 11th, just 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's Tucson home, a single discarded black glove lay as a silent witness. For investigators, this wasn't just a piece of lost clothing, it was a potential breakthrough. The gloves looked similar to the ones worn by the masked figure caught on doorbell footage. However, the tension broke with a disappointing update on February 17th. The DNA had been run and returned nothing but a no-match notification. A few days later, an anonymous source told Reuters that Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos is blocking FBI access to evidence in the case of Nancy Guthrie. The source claims that the FBI asked the sheriff for physical evidence to be processed at the FBI's crime lab, which is in Quantico, Virginia. The report claims that Sheriff Nanos insisted on using a private lab in Florida. Sketch artist Lois Gibson posted on Facebook a sketch of what the intruder shown on surveillance footage might look like. Investigators say they have now received thousands of tips, and the next few weeks could be critical. Is Nancy Guthrie even alive at this point? Subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.